Hey, Lance, welcome to the show. As a way of getting started, tell us about yourself.
First of all, thank you, Brian, for the opportunity to speak to you and your audience. Big fan. A lot of your people talk about being a dinosaur. Last month, on the 16th of December, I celebrated 28 years in sales. My daughter Megan was 2 weeks old when I got my first sales job. So I definitely one of the dinosaurs. Been doing a variety of sales since the early 90s. Actually started out as a project manager for EDS, was a computer programmer, computer science degree, and believe it or not, some of the best lessons I got in sales were as a project manager.
Yeah. And what type of sales did you start with?
I started selling drugs legally. Worked for a company out of Japan called Fujisawa USA for a few years, and then went back into the tech space in the early mid-90s and been in that since then.
And what are you selling today?
I work for a company called Patagonia Health. We sell electronic health record solutions to behavioral health facilities. I'm out of Raleigh, North Carolina, and my territory is the West.
Yeah, great. That sounds logical.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And is it a travel job or is it
Yeah, I mean, it's you travel when needed. You can get a deal with the tools like what we're using here pretty far these days. Actually closed a deal in Hawaii. You know, I know you've got a Hawaii story that you were telling in December.
Yeah.
I've got completely. I tried to go on site, but was able to close that over the phone. So
you don't ask for permission. You'll never get it.
That's a good point, but we did get it in, so that was fun. So that was.
Yeah. What's the sale like? How hard is it?
Well, we're selling to primarily, Brian, nonprofits, and so money's really tight. Now, oftentimes there's some grant funding that's going to be available through these people, but it's hard. I mean, it's a lot harder than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. And is it an expensive product?
Oh, yes, we're one of the more expensive products in the market, which really, I address that first thing.
Yeah, just self-qualifying. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like, when you go to a restaurant, it's got a big menu. It's easy to say no.
Yeah.
And then you go, okay, that's a maybe, that's a maybe. Well, I want to get to know really fast.
Yeah. And how do you can tell when it's going to be a yes or a maybe?
When they're describing what they think are problems, pain, whatever words you want to use.
Yeah.
You and I had several conversations last year through the Get the Meeting class about where our story is best told.
Yeah.
And how we impact things. And so there's a 3.5 to 4 items we can greatly impact. And if they're having issues with those, we get opportunity. If not,
it's not a match.
No, and it's funny. When you've done the last couple of months talking to other sales guys out there, it's been really interesting. Not everybody qualifies.
Go figure.
Well, but it's funny because people in their personal lives, you don't date every woman that's out there that's would be in your age bracket, right?
You go younger.
But you get it about certain things, and then they think all of a sudden it's like you said, we're not dealing with mammals anymore, we're dealing with prospects.
Right.
And one of the things that's really helped me when you talk about where I thought the value of Get the Meeting is this whole concept of the tribe. And when I'm trying to explain it to people, I said, think of nice fish on steroids. And it's, people really don't, they don't want you in their tribe. And if you're not in their tribe, they're not going to trust you. And without trust, you're not going to sell them anything.
They don't believe you. Well,
and I tell a story, and I credit you for giving me the nerve, I guess, to try this. So many of the people that I'm calling on are they're therapists, so licensed clinical social workers, different kinds of therapists. And I tell this story, and it definitely gets me in the tribe. Is about a year and a half ago, I had a family member that was struggling with depression, and we had a suicide attempt. And through the work with therapists, that person's now healed and on a much better path. And I tell them, I said, look, thank you. Because I've sat on the other side of the table.
Yeah.
And, what you guys do makes a difference. And Brian, I don't do it to be manipulative, and it's hard to get out. I mean, about half the time I have to stop because it is an emotional situation, but it makes me one of them.
You connect with them.
I'm now in the tribe. I'm not trying to sell them something. I'm there to help them.
You're talking to them.
Yes.
Yeah. Go figure.
Exactly.
And I think, you mentioned one thing that I see quite a bit is people see, 7 billion people on the planet, and they say, all I need is 1%. And that's a lot, right? It's what, 70 million? Right?
Exactly.
But what we sell, all we need is 10, 20, 30 deals a year to crush our number.
Right.
So why not just focus on the ones that are most likely to have that pain that you solve?
Well, one of the things I've never understood either, generally speaking, most people are happy with, say, a 20 to 25 cent conversion rate. Why?
Well, that means you're wasting 80% of your time.
Exactly. And I mean, I felt like I wasted time on certain deals, and mine was last year was 50%.
Yeah. You don't want to be, because 100 means you're probably not talking to enough people.
Correct.
You're only dealing with inbound, the best of the best. Mm-hmm. And I've seen reps do that. But if you can determine online that they're not qualified, you should not be contacting them, right? Just go, because there's hundreds that are.
Well, it's funny you mention that because, where my people are, they're not on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And, and I can find their website, and I go to their news section, and, the latest news post is from 2014.
Yeah.
Not a huge web presence.
Right.
And, we are having to use a little bit more traditional methods to get in, but they do answer the phone. And as long as they answer the phone, there's an opportunity to have a conversation.
But you probably noticed a pattern, either the size,
yes.
It might be where they are in their lives. Are they early stage, late stage? Are they technically interested, or are they paper people?
Correct. And, if paper, we've got some good stories on that. But, where we, typically have the most success is they've automated at some point, and the experience wasn't what needed it to be.
Yeah.
Those are the folks that it's fun to sell to.
Yeah. And what are some of the epiphanies that you've experienced as a rep? I think you mentioned one before we started, but.
Well, the biggest thing for me is most reps don't know what they believe.
Yeah.
It's like you said, and one of the things you talk about, what do you believe about humans? What do you believe about sales? Because if you don't know what it is, you're going to behave accordingly to it. You're just not going to know why.
Right. You act like a sales rep.
Well, yeah. And, one of the, beliefs I have is, people don't argue with their own data. And so my job is to find out what their data is.
Yeah. And
then get in the tribe and change it. I don't know. I tagged you on a post on LinkedIn. I don't know if you've had a chance to read it. James Clear, the guy that wrote Atomic Habits, has posted this article called Facts Don't Matter. And it basically says, if you present people with facts that are contrary to what they believe, they won't believe you until you become their friend.
Right. And because what we see today, certainly on the political side, right? I mean, you could have a videotape of somebody doing something, and people, I don't care, that. And Well, what the lesson from that is that our confirmation bias is so strong, and also the tribalness of it, right? Because there's a documentary right now on Frontline on PBS,
Okay.
and the Great Divide. But they do it from both sides, from what it was like 8 years with Obama and now close to 4 years with Trump. And they're doing the same thing, but just in the opposite way.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I think sales people in general don't understand that and can't comprehend what the other person's going through.
Well, I did some consulting with an old Sandler sales consultant in the early 2000s. And, we used to say, as long as it's human beings and not shaved apes, people are going to behave a certain way.
Yeah.
And one of the things too that, people buy emotionally, Brian, and they justify it intellectually. And most reps are afraid to tap into that emotion.
Well, we think because we're in business and we're wearing a tie or a jacket, we've got to act the role.
Right. Well, if people buy emotionally is not true, then everybody would be driving a Honda Civic and a few minivans.
Yeah.
And people aren't willing, the beautiful thing about emotion is it makes the status quo the enemy. And, you talk a lot about no decision. No decision is you lost to the status quo.
Right. There's not enough of a reason to take action because other things are more important.
Right. And that's one of the things I view as my job. And the question I constantly ask myself is, how do I make the status quo the enemy?
Yes.
Their enemy.
Right.
Because once they own it, and I was talking one time with one of our younger reps, and he made the comment. He said, "You don't talk very much during discovery." I said, "You ask questions." And I said, "Well, why do you think that is?" I didn't care what he said. The answer was right. But and then I was leaving him. I looked at him. I said, "Do you think it's possible to tell do you think it's possible to tell people what you know by asking them questions?" I left.
Yeah. Well, that is an advanced skill, because what do most sales reps do?
Tell.
Not only do they talk, but they're voice activated. They're like Alexa or Siri, where as soon as the other person starts talking, they start talking.
Right.
And they run over each other.
Well, I always tell folks, look, if you don't know anything else to do, breathe.
Yeah.
Don't talk, just breathe, and then you'll figure out something to say.
Because it's also rapport building, because it puts a little bit of pressure on them to say something. And they want to talk, and they want to share what they're going through, because that creates a conversation. And that skill of being able to have a conversation that can turn into a business conversation is our job.
Well, yeah, and it's funny. You talk a lot about metrics and laugh at some of the sales management practices that are out there. That's the only metric I track now: sales conversations.
Yeah, a real interactive conversation.
Right, where they were talking to me, I wasn't talking at them.
Yeah, otherwise you're really just an animated commercial. You're not really connecting with somebody, eliciting anything from them, developing rapport, because the discovery that you really want is, can I get this person to recognize this problem?
And I mean, when I think about my audience, they're used to silence.
Yeah.
When you're in therapy, oftentimes they ask a question, they don't get answered right away. So they're comfortable with it. And so you just have to kind of, be comfortable with it.
Right. Because when somebody is talking, they have to process it. Right. And that can be, especially when you don't know the person that well, you're trying to think of all the context around it and make sense out of it.
Well, you talk about this a lot, listening to understand versus
To hear.
listening to respond.
Yeah.
And my wife, I hope my wife would say I've gotten better about that.
If she hasn't, she's wrong.
Well, that's another great point that you make. Most sales reps need to give up the need to be right.
Yes. Take the ego out of the sale.
Right. And, we can, and part of, I think, that need to be right is, making a deal move faster than the prospect wants it to move.
Yeah.
I've got a power move that I'd like to show you for how I advance deals. If you think you can, if you're ready for it.
Hold on, let me get my seatbelt.
What do you want me to do now?
Yeah. You ask that.
Well, and the issue is what I do is I do it early when there's not much at stake.
Yeah.
And then, because this is a discovery call, well, what do you want me to do now? Well, I'd like to see a demo. Really, why?
Yeah.
And it's that, if they are responding and moving the deal forward early, then I know at the end I can go, what do you want me to do now? Well, I think we'd like to see some pricing. Okay. Well, what do you want? Let's make sure I've got it right, and never be more excited than they are, and move it forward.
Yeah. How long is your typical sales cycle? Is there a typical one?
Last year, we tracked that. Mine was 104 days.
104 days, so a little over 3 months.
Yeah, and a couple of those, I had a couple of that really kicked that in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And then on the deals that I, closed or lost, it was like 15 days.
Okay. And what mistakes have you made selling the product?
The first mistake, and you get in there and you want everybody, you want to win them all, right? I mean, even though I've been at this a long time, I still want to win every deal. And, in the beginning, I don't want to say getting maybe lazy in discovery, but getting happy ears.
Right. Yeah.
And, instead of now, when I look at like the first deal I lost, I don't know that I would have ever won it, but I'm not sure it would have taken as long to get rid of it.
Yeah. You held on to it too long.
Yeah, and it only probably was out there like 40 days, but I was so sure it was going to close. But, that's just me being my ego.
Yeah. Have you developed your judgment on these better?
Yes. It's listening to, whomever you're speaking to, how they articulate their problem. If they're using words like me or I or my versus the people or him or her, then they have ownership of it.
Yeah.
There was one deal, it was a nice sized deal. Brian, in the almost 30 years I've been selling, I had never been that teed up for a presentation. She had told us, this person's going to be sitting here and these are the questions they're going to ask. And, it was supposed to be, I think, we booked a 4-hour meeting and it was 6.5 hours and they were still asking questions when we were done.
Yeah. That's gold, isn't it?
Well, yeah. And the thing is, she did everything she said she was going to do when she said she was going to do it. Started with a cold call, and first call, she was not interested.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, listen, I get that. Sent her some, I probably sent her some literature on the email or whatever. I just told her I'd get back to her. And I was supposed to call her like on a Wednesday. And that Monday, she reached back out to me. And what had happened is she had spoken to somebody that we had not done a deal with, had wanted to buy our product, but they had a 3-year contract they couldn't get out of.
Yeah.
And I actually had a reference from somebody who didn't buy from me. That's the first time that's happened.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Now, what advice do you have for people coming up? Maybe their first, the first 5 years in sales is probably a super big roller coaster, right?
It is. Start with checking, check your ego is the first thing. And that's probably the hardest.
Yeah.
Because once you check your ego, a lot of other things are going to be available.
Yes.
But until you do, nothing's going to be available.
Yeah.
And, it's funny. I was thinking about this morning. It's, when you talk about sales being a performance art, a lot of people are into check boxes. I did discovery. Well, if you look at a guy who hit a game-winning home run and the guy that struck out swinging in the game, they both did the same thing. They swung the bat.
They swung the bat, right? One swung it much better than the other.
Correct. There was there's a performance to that.
Yes.
And so it's, when you embrace that it's okay that you don't know everything.
Right.
And you talk about being a detective and natural curiosity. When you may remember this, and most of your audience won't, this was back when we had travel alarm clocks. And my dad had one of those, it was like a triangle thing and it folded.
Yep,
and had
I remember them, yeah.
Those things are really easy to take apart and almost impossible to put back together. And I tested that theory several times. But I just had this natural curiosity about
how it worked.
Right. And, when you get to a point where you can, it's 60-40 or 1/3, 2/3 talking and listening, all those things. You make a game out of how little you can talk in a discovery call.
Yeah.
My records, I think I had an hour and 15 minutes and I talked for 12.
Yeah, my practice was going in my 20s when I went to parties. It was seeing how long I could be in a conversation without saying anything about me and only asking questions.
Right.
And the crazy thing is, after the party, a friend would call me up and go, you were talking to that lady. She wanted your number. You were so interesting.
Yeah, you're such a great conversationalist, Brian.
Right. And she didn't even get your name. Right. And I remember the conversation. She was into horses. I don't know anything about horses. I go, well, how does that work?
Right. Yeah, tell me more.
Right. Oh, do you have your own barn, or you rent a stall, or do you own the horse, or do you? Is it like Uber of horses where you can just like switch them around? And once you do that and you translate that into sales, because the talking isn't so much as getting them to talk, finding out what you need to know.
Right.
Because questions are our only mind control.
Well, and the thing is, you don't want it to feel like the Spanish Inquisition either.
No, right, exactly. It's got to be a thought-provoking question, a curiosity question. Get them talking about them. It's not like, how long have you been looking for my product? What's the budget for my product?
And sometimes, we've kind of changed how we do things, not really purposefully. But if we can get like 4 or 5 questions, then, okay, now we can do a demo, but we demo just to that.
Yes.
Question there.
Right, because they are now curious.
Right. And, never, it's kind of like don't answer unasked questions. Don't demo to unknown
problems. Because, you might want to know everything about the car you're buying, how the carburetor, the fuel injection works, and the exhaust manifold size. I don't know, right? I want to, okay, how's the seat? I like a nice sporty seat and a good stereo, and I like an open roof. And it's fast and how it handles. Those are the things I care about.
Right. So don't show me the back seat.
Yeah. Don't show me the glove compartment light. Yeah.
And
I think reps are so proud of their product, and that's what they know.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Right.
and I think your point about the ego, because that really that's the first step in the outward mindset.
Right.
You're starting to
Right.
think how other people think. The second one
Mm-hmm.
is curiosity.
Yeah.
And
And I mean, it has to be genuine too. I mean,
yes,
because you don't want to be manipulative, and so you have to care about people. And I think that's you talk about, yet you do need to like the product, and you do have to believe it brings value, but it's how you articulate that separates the A players from the non.
yeah, because you got to connect it to the pain that they feel, that they
Mm-hmm.
care about, that, and build that curiosity into interest
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
instead of just telling them what it is and how it works and how great it is.
Well, yeah, and I mean, a lot of people go off of a script, where they show this and then this and then this and then this, and I'm like, what are you gonna say first?
Yeah.
Yeah, why?
Because they probably didn't think about it, but something will pop up. And
Right.
that the thing that pops up was probably going to be one of the more important things.
Right, and particularly in that first exchange, when it goes to, you don't want to sound like a sales rep. Um, you know, it's little things like, and I do this, on my demos constantly, but it's like, oh, you like, we were at the end, you see everything you wanted, all that. But what was your favorite thing?
Yeah.
Why? And then, okay, now okay, so when we do the whatever, we're not going to have to, it's going to save her 15 hours a week. Oh, really? So what is that,
Right.
know?
Yeah.
So,
And what I like about what you're saying is that these are things that anyone can do.
absolutely.
You're not relying on charm and personality. You're relying on curiosity and interest.
Well, yeah. I mean, but that goes to, checking the ego.
Yeah. Cool. Well, what do you wish
And
you were better at?
um, I still think I got a lot of work to do on that initial, when you're cold calling, that first stuff.
Yeah, it's hard.
It is, and yeah, you practice and you do it, and it's you just got to embrace the suck, because it's not fun. And I've been doing it for a while, and it's still new every day. The first call of the day is just a waste. I mean,
Yeah.
no
Well,
matter how much you practice it.
yeah, prospecting I see is a lot like running, because I don't know if you've
Yeah,
ever run, but like the
yeah,
first mile, every cell in your body is trying to give you an excuse to go home
right,
and stop. It's
right,
like, did you
yeah,
have enough rest? Did you stretch enough?
yeah,
Maybe
right,
you need one more day of rest.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
think prospecting is like that. And that goes to our subconscious. It's trying to avoid pain and gain pleasure.
And I mean, even though I don't take it personally, it is personal to be hung up on. I mean, there's nothing more personal.
And it feels like they hit you,
Yeah,
physically hit you.
yeah, yeah,
I remember the first time it happened to me, I had to go out for a good 8 mile run to, get the energy and the anger,
yeah.
because I wanted to call them back, right? And yell at them.
Well, and in my business, oftentimes you can call them back. Now you might have to wait 6 months,
Oh, you could, yeah, right.
but they're
But
going to
I wanted
forget
to call
them.
back and, prove that, you can't do that to me. This is a
Right,
real important call.
absolutely. So one of the other things you asked, what would I would I offer to young sales guys? Write down what you believe about sales.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you read it. I sent you something. I woke up, gosh, last Christmas morning with a really bad hangover and couldn't get back to sleep, and wrote out it's about a 30-page document of everything I believe in sales and how I do things. And I used the mapping software that you had suggested from Get the Meeting. But understand, because your beliefs are what's going to drive, or what's going to make you have decisions when you don't know why you did something.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you don't believe in your product, when you start getting a little pushback, then you're going to fall back.
Right. Yeah. Oh, it's too expensive, or you don't have budget, or
Well, another really interesting concept you talked about in December is this whole thing about objections. And I used to think objections were part of the sales process. And if I'm honest, and I went back and thought hard about it, looked at all my notes, every deal I closed in 2019, I never got any objections.
Right. It usually means you're moving too fast. You're asking for
Exactly.
something you haven't earned.
Right.
Or you're asking for something that doesn't make sense.
Right.
Right. What's the first one? Do you have 2 minutes? Right. Have you earned anything? You hit a button. You earn nothing.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. Of course you get an objection. What's this about? Or no, I'm really busy. Right.
Right. Well, I tell you, my favorite comeback to, and I said this by accident one time and it actually worked. When he said, listen, I'm too busy. I said, well, if you weren't busy, are you the kind of person you think I'd want to talk to? And that's what he did. That's what he did. And he laughed. I was like, okay, now I got him, right?
You got him. Cool. Hey, this has been a great conversation. Where can people go to follow you and learn from you?
I'm on LinkedIn. I think my Lance Carroll Serves, I believe, is my, if you typed it in, Lance Carroll at Patagonia Health.